The Watership Down Podcast is intended for listeners who are familiar with the plot. There may be spoilers. This episode is scripted by Newell Fisher with script assistance by John Ruths and is narrated, recorded and edited by Newell Fisher. Hello and welcome to the Watership Down Podcast episode 85, in which we will be going through section 24 of the 1978 film, The Great Patrol. First of all, for their assistance in last week's episode, we welcome Peter Strudwick and Peter White to the podcast Owsler for their skills in patrolling unknown RPG territory. Leah Michaela, of course, was made a member in episode 62. Leah has also been in touch about another rabbit-based role-playing game called The Warren that I was not previously aware of. At first glance, it looks simpler than Bunnies and Burrows and is worth a look. You can find the game at bullypulpitgames.com. That's bullypulpitgames.com/games/The Warren. That's the-Warren. I will also include the link in the notes. I'm very aware that I've fallen way behind with the full podcast notes, which have to be edited down to about a third of the full length on Anchor. I'm trying to catch up in the next few weeks. Next, and entirely unplanned, I've had a brief online conversation with Michelle Price, who played Lucy in the 1978 film. She sent me the following recollections. Quote, I'm happy to tell you a few things. I remember the recording very well. Martin Rosen was one of the nicest men you could possibly meet, and the film was my one and only chance of attending a premiere, and it turned out to be the royal premiere of the year, and I got to meet Prince Charles, now our new king. For a 14-year-old girl, it was amazing, overwhelming, and one of the most memorable days in my life, from the build-up to the day and my first long dress, which was yellow chiffon. I very rarely speak about my acting career, and indeed many people that know me have no idea I even had an acting career. Watership Down was a lucky part as it led on to a BBC serial, and I then became the girl in the Boomtown Rats I Don't Like Mondays video, and also their video Diamond Smiles. End quote. Thank you so much for those memories, Michelle. They were really appreciated. She has also sent me 3 photos from her post-Watership Down acting career, which I will put up online on the Facebook group, as well as Twitter and Instagram. Next, following the recent reclassification of Watership Down 1978 as a PG film or parental guidance in the UK, which I commented on in episode 82, I've been listening to an episode of the British Board of Film Classification podcast in which the subject of the reclassification was discussed. Although it comes across as a bit of an exercise in self-justification, it is nevertheless an interesting listen. The relevant episode is number 95, recorded on the 11th of November 2019, and the section on Watership Down starts at about 14 minutes in, though the whole episode is worth a listen. For example, a film that presented similar issues was The Italian Job, due to its moral ambiguity. Clearly, a reclassification of Watership Down was on the cards some time before the current 50th anniversary of the book's publication. It seems that the showing of the film 1 year here as an Easter movie in the afternoon may have been a contributory factor to its reclassification to parental guidance. That must have been an interesting Easter. Will we ever reach a cultural place where rabbit does not automatically mean cute? Probably not. Talking of which, let's start looking at the climactic section of the 1978 film. The best portrayal of a bloody battle between rabbits in cinematic history, and not an Easter egg to be seen. Section 24. The Great Patrol. This section covers from 72 minutes 20 to 74 minutes 50, and the equivalent chapters from the book are 42, News at Sunset, and 43, The Great Patrol.
Everyone, underground!
As Kihar disappears into the moon and his theme fades away, it slowly transforms into a shot of the sun. Out-of-focus grasses wave in front of the camera, and the music is replaced by the optimistic clarinet theme that has previously characterised the idyll of life on Watership Down. The camera zooms out to take in the lone tree on the hill as the grass is coming into focus. A butterfly lands on one of the grasses. Dissolved to a closer shot of the tree as the camera pans down its length, and then to a shot of the rabbits of Watership Down, calmly sylph-laying in the summer sun. It is unclear how much time has passed, though it is clearly not months. From left to right we see 2 does, formerly of Ephrafa, Blackberry, Bigwig, behind him a sleeping and clearly not yet recovered Holly, indicating how little time may have passed, Dandelion, Silver and Pipkin both asleep, Hazel awake and alert as ever, a sleeping Fiver, and Hyzenthley. The beautiful clarinet theme has continued playing. All is well on Watership Down. And all that is about to change. With a sudden shocking change in the music, using drums and trumpets, we see another shot of the lone tree, only this time it is framed by undergrowth, and we can see the backs of 3 rabbit heads, 2 of them just arriving in the stilted Ephrafa manner. These are rabbits that have clearly approached under cover. Cut to Silver, running in blind panic towards Bigwig and Hazel. He is shouting to get the holes filled in, stuttering over the first word in his panic, and that everyone should get underground. We briefly see him arrive at the base of the tree between Hazel and Bigwig. As he speaks, we cut to an incredible shot of Hyzenthley's face as her ears lower and her eyes register the growing terror of realising what has happened. Cut back to Silver, Hazel and Bigwig. Hazel calmly asks what is the matter. Silver just says, "The General." Bigwig's "where" speaks to the strength of his character. Time is severely telescoped at this point for dramatic effect, as Hyzenthley, who we've only just seen reacting to the initial shock, arrives from the right to confirm that the wood behind them is full of Ephrathans. And now we see Blackafar. He too shows his character by simply asserting that he is not going back, his ragged ears waving as he shakes his head, emphasising why. And now we hear poor Pipkin, who is no fighter, simply saying maybe they ought to leave. Symbolically, he says this as he moves away from the tree from between Blackafar and Bigwig, with Silver still by the tree. They both look at him, Bigwig angrily. And now a close-up on Hazel, as Pipkin gets a stern rebuke with his Henry V moment. He says anyone who wants to can go, but they went through a lot to get there, and he isn't leaving. As he speaks, we cut to a wider zooming out shot of Bigwig, Pipkin, Hazel, Holly, Silver and Dandelion, the tree of Watership Down in the background. Cut to Bigwig, as he confirms he isn't either. He says that if he is for the Black Rabbit, meaning if he is going to die, then 1 or 2 from Ephrafa will be joining him. As Bigwig is still speaking, we cut to a shot of the interior of the warren on Watership Down. Strangely enough, apart from a very brief shot from behind Bigwig as he pushed past Keehar about half an hour early in the film, as well as Keehar's subsequent shout asking where all the chicks are, this is the first proper shot from inside the warren on Watership Down in the whole film. Although in the book a lot of the action on the down took place underground, it seems that the filmmakers preferred to emphasise the safety and optimism of the warren there by having the action above ground. In a way this is a shame, as the interior of the warren becomes little more than an emergency bunker as a result, but you can see their reasoning. Blackberry and Dandelion are filling in a hole to the left as Hazel moves past them, saying they will fill in the holes good and deep. He is in another part of what must be the honeycomb, though it is never named as such in the film, as we see Blackafar and Hyzenthley both filling in holes. He says the Ephrathans can't stay out in the open for long without attracting a Lil, the 1,000 enemies of rabbits who predate upon them. Blackafar, sounding scared now, says that he doesn't know what they are like, that they will never give up. Hyzenthley says he is right, that they maybe should leave. Panic and desperation seems to be growing. Hazel, in a close-up, simply asserts that they are staying, his previous invitation for anyone who wants to leave having seemingly expired. But he says there may be a better way. As Hazel moves past an amazed Dandelion and Blackberry, clearly intending to go above ground, Bigwig asks him to let him come as well. Blackafar looks on, also amazed. Hazel's bravery at this point is beyond doubt. His leadership, which has been reduced in stature at several points in the film, is now beyond question. Which is ironic, because what he says next is either a stroke of luck or else Hazel showing absolute genius in what he chooses to say to Bigwig. He says that the Efrathans know Bigwig too well and that it would be better if he went alone. This is certainly true. Had Bigwig gone with Hazel, he would have been torn apart, out in the open and surrounded by so many Efrathan Owsla, without a doubt. But is Hazel also gambling on who General Woundwort will think Bigwig is, as in the chief rabbit of the Warren on Watership Down? There is no indication of this in the book, although he does tell Bigwig that he is chief rabbit until Hazel gets back, an appointment, the right of which to grant, Bigwig does not argue with. As he leaves, Hazel tells them all to get the holes filled in and that he won't be long. Cut to Hazel running towards the wood behind the down where the Efrathans are encamped. Cut to a scared Pipkin, terrified that they will all be taken back to Ephrafa. Blackberry looks on as Bigwig reassures him, saying they're not finished by a long shot. He does actually sound convinced. Cut to an aerial shot of the wood Hazel is approaching. As he arrives at a path into the wood, he is joined by 2 Efrathan Owsla. They pause briefly as he looks at both of them before leading him into the wood. The shot dissolves to General Woundwort getting down to the point. He makes it clear that he recognises Hazel as having been one of the rabbits on the riverbank during his recent moment of humiliation. Moving menacingly towards Hazel, he asks if Bigwig sent him. We get a close-up on Hazel as he makes one of the cleverest or luckiest moves in the whole film, stating simply that he is a friend of Bigwig's. Basically, by saying this, he is not confirming Bigwig sent him or denying it. As we know, it is simply not within Woundwort's world view that this rabbit could possibly be senior to the larger Bigwig. A close-up on Woundwort as he makes his promise that what was left unfinished on the riverbank will be finished now, and a chilling glimpse into his twisted psyche. Hazel, under guard, with 2 angry Efrathan Owsla either side of him, provides us with an immediate contrast in leadership style. He says it would be better if they could come to terms. The rabbits guarding him look surprised. Woundwort agrees and gives his terms, which of course are not negotiable. As he demands the handing over of all the deserters, we get a Hazel's eye view panning shot of Woundwort and 6 angry Owsla members sitting behind and to one side of him. As we see the shot, we hear Hazel say that they could not agree to handing over the deserters, but that he can suggest something better for both of them. We see the eyes of the rabbit closest to Hazel widen slightly as he says this. This is the kind of talk that Efrathans have simply never heard before. The camera pans back to Woundwort as his voice hardens. Hazel is in no position to bargain, but nevertheless Hazel persists. He says that they shouldn't be fighting, as they have enough enemies as it is. Moving his face towards Woundwort without any fear, alarming his guard in the process, Hazel suggests his big idea, that their 2 warrens should be together, a joining of, quote, free independent warrens, end quote. As he says this, we see a close-up on Woundwort's face, as he has a brief moment of clarity which is well described in the book. He looks to one side, momentarily grasping the idea, before dismissing it out of hand, saying he has no time for this nonsense. He has had his chance. Cut to one of the guards, looming over Hazel, who turns out to be Campion. Menacingly, he asks Woundwort if he should kill Hazel, raising his claws in readiness. Cut to the view from behind Hazel. He looks towards Campion bravely, but clearly in a little fear. Woundwort immediately says no, and tells Hazel to take back their terms. As he speaks, we get a close-up on Hazel's face as, listening to Woundwort, he nevertheless gives Campion another concerned glance. The face characterisation in this scene of the film, considering the fact that this is a scene involving overtly naturalistic rabbits, is just incredible, especially that of Hazel. And so we come to Woundwort's terms, which are that if Hazel's chief Bigwig, as well as Heisensley and the others, are not outside when he comes for them, he will tear out every throat in the place. Hazel, of course, does not correct him as to Bigwig's status as chief. As Woundwort gets to the last part, the camera zooms menacingly in on his mouth, on his teeth. Comparison with the book. Although I have called this episode The Great Patrol, and I nearly didn't, the phrase is not used at all in the film. Having cut the entire journey back from the River Test to Watership Down, the film also misses out the events in Ephrata that followed Woundwort's humiliation on its banks. We also learn of Woundwort's terrible logic in forming the Great Patrol. Rumours of what happened on the test are circulating in Ephrata, and his reputation is on the line. As ever with tyrants, others have to die so that their reputation can be maintained. Although the description of the organisation of the Great Patrol leaves you in no doubt as to Woundwort's tactical genius, what lies behind those tactics is still utterly twisted. Returning to the rabbits of Watership Down, the film misses out the character of the ostensibly Italian-sounding mouse Hazel saves from a hawk shortly after their arrival on the Down. In the chapter News at Sunset, this mouse returns the favour by giving them crucial advanced warning, albeit inadvertently, of the approaching Ephrathans. The only portrayal of Watership Down that even comes close to this mouse character is Hannah from the 1999 TV series. I've always thought of this as a shame. The way in which the mouse gives Hazel the chilling information he needs is one of the tensest moments in the book. Instead, here, we get the sudden jarring shock of strange rabbits looking towards the Down and Silver's sudden panic. Hazel's meeting with Woundwort is cleverly told entirely from the Ephrathans' point of view at the end of the Great Patrol chapter, after Hazel leaves to speak to him at the end of the previous chapter, News at Sunset. So by the time they meet, we know exactly how and why Woundwort has come to the Down, and how ruthless he is prepared to be. Hazel's vision of a brighter future for both Warrens never has a chance of changing his mind, and this moment, fully described in the book, is brilliantly portrayed in the film without words. Woundwort has come to Watership Down for bloodshed, and nothing, seemingly, can stop him. Next time, Hazel receives a message from El Akhira.